Hello, my name is Zainab Yavaş, and today I'm going to talk about the strategies for memory in materials development course. First of all, my friends mentioned about the short-term memory. Short-term memory or primary or active memory is the capacity for holding an amount of information in an active way, readily available state for a short interval. For example, short-term memory holds a phone number that has just been recited. The duration of short-term memory, for example, absence rehearsal or active maintenance, is estimated to be on the order of seconds. The commonly cited capacity of 7 items found in Miller's law has been superseded by 4 in 1 items. In contrast, long-term memory holds information indefinitely. Short-term memory is not the same as working memory, which refers to structures and processes used to temporarily storing and manipulating information. And the examples of the short-time memory are remembering the phone numbers, following directions, comprehending a conversation, and doing mental math. Second term is the chunking. In cognitive psychology, chunking is a process by which small individual pieces of a set of information are bound together to create a meaningful whole later on in memory. The chunks by which the information is grouped are meant to improve short-term retention of the material, thus bypassing the limited capacity of working memory and allowing the working memory to be more efficient. A chunk is a collection of basic units that are strongly associated with one another and have been grouped together and stored in a person's memory. These chunks can be retrieved easily due to their coherent grouping. It is believed that individuals create higher order cognitive representations of the items within the chunk. The items are more easily remembered as a group than as the individual items themselves. These chunks can be highly subjective because they rely on individuals' perceptions and past experiences, which are linked to the information set. The size of the chunks generally ranges from 2 to 6 items, but often differs based on the language and the culture. And the examples of the chunking are remembering a phone number again and learning vocabulary belongs to a specific language and learning an address. Third one is the long-term memory. Long-term memory is the stage of the Atkinson-Shiffrin memory model in which informative knowledge is held indefinitely. It is defined in contrast to sensory memory, the initial stage, and short-term memory or working memory, the second stage, which persists for about 18 or 30 seconds. Language-term memory is grouped into 2 categories known as explicit memory, declarative memory, and implicit memory. And the other name is a non-declarative memory. Explicit memory is broken down into episodic and semantic memory, while implicit memory includes procedural memory and emotional conditioning. The brain does not store memories as one unified structure. Instead, different types of memory are stored in different regions of the brain. Long-term memory is typically divided up into 2 major headings. They are explicit memory and implicit memory again. We mentioned about the explicit memory in this page. Explicit memory or declarative memory refers to all memories that are consciously available. These are encoded by the hippocampus, entorhinal cortex, and peripheral cortex in our brain, but consolidated and stored elsewhere. The precise location of storage is unknown, but the temporal cortex has been proposed as a likely candidate. Research by Molemans and Van der Lichten in 2003 found that amnesiac, I don't know how it can spell, patients with damage to the medial temporal lobe performed more poorly on explicit learning tests than did healthy controls. However, these same amnesiac patients performed at the same rate as healthy controls on implicit learning tests. And this implies that the medial temporal lobe is heavily involved in explicit learning, but not in implicit learning. And implicit memory is, or the other name procedurال memory, refers to the use of objects or movements of the body, such as how exactly to use a pencil, drive a car, or ride a bicycle. This type of memory is encoded and it is presumed stored by the striatum and other parts of the basal ganglia. The basal ganglia is believed to mediate procedural memory and other brain structures and is largely independent of the hippocampus. Research by Manelius, Hansen, and Hansen found that the reactivation of independent the parietal and occipital regions was associated with implicit memory. Procedural memory is considered non-declarative memory or unconscious memory, which includes priming and non-associative learning. The first part of the non-declarative memory or implicit memory involves priming. Priming occurs when you do something faster after you have already done that activity, such as writing or using a fork. Other categories of memory may also be relevant to the discussion of long-term memory. For example, emotional memory, the memory for events that evoke a particularly strong emotion, is a domain that can involve both declarative and procedural memory processes. Emotional memories are consciously available but elicit a powerful, unconscious psychological reaction. Research indicates that the amygdala is extremely active during emotional situations and active with the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex in the encoding and consolidation of emotional events. Working memory is not part of long-term memory, but it is important for its function. Working memory holds and manipulates information for short periods of time before it's either forgotten or encoded into long-term memory. Then, in order to remember something from long-term memory, it must be brought back into working memory. If working memory is overloaded, it can affect the encoding of long-term memory. If one has a good working memory, they may have a better LTM encoding. Fourth one is the retrieval. Memory retrieval involves the interaction between external sensory or internally generated cues and stored memory traces or engrams in a process termed a copy or a I don't know. While a copy, ekporhe, I don't know, has been examined in human cognitive neuroscience research. Its neurobiological foundation is less understood to the extent that a copy involves reawakening of engrams. Livergain recently developed technologies that can identify and manipulate engrams in rodents, provides a fertile avenue for examining retrieval at the level of the neuronal sensible. Here we evaluate emerging neuroscientific research of this type, using cognitive theory as a guiding principle to organize and interpret initial findings. Overview highlights the critical interaction between engrams and retrieval cues for memory accessibility and retrieval success. These findings also highlight the intimate relationship between the mechanism important in forming engrams and those important in the data recovery as captured in the cognitive notion of encoding specificity. And finally, we identified several questions that currently remain unanswered. And the example of retrieval, recalling a friend's birthday. There is a specific situation for recalling and remembering a phone number and finding a word on the tip of your tongue. And rehearsal is in educational psychology. Rehearsal refers to the cognitive process in which information is repeated over and over in a possible way of learning and remembering it. There are two types of memory rehearsal. The first type is called maintenance rehearsal. A person can do this by saying aloud or thinking of material repeatedly until it becomes a part of the working memory. However, the material may fade from the working memory quickly. An example of this is looking up a phone number but forgetting it before being able to deal it into the phone. This is the common form of rote learning. Rote learning is learning and memorization by repetition, often without an understanding learning. Rote learning is learning or memorization by repetition. Um, However, the materials may register eventually and take large amounts of time and hard work. Maintenance rehearsal is viewed in educational psychology as an ineffective way of getting information to long-term memory. Another type of rehearsal is elaborate rehearsal. This entails connecting new materials learned with already existing long-term memories. In this kind of rehearsal, repetitive tactics or not successful strategies such as engaging the brain of the learners in an elaboration exercise will help the memories be more storable and retrieval in the future. And associative or non-associative memory. In psychology, associative memory is defined as the ability to learn and remember this relationship between unrelated items. This would include, for example, remembering the name of someone or the aroma of a particular perfume. This type of memory deals specifically with the relationship between these different objects or concepts. A normal associative memory tasks involve testing participants on their recall of pairs of unrelated items, such as face name pairs. Associative memory is a declarative memory structure and episodically based. And non-associative learning is when you're not pairing a stimulus with a behavior. And non-associative learning can be either habituation and sensitization. Long-term memory is associative. When it comes to long-term memory, it's like the massive web of connections in your brain, linking atoms, the concepts together. You got all these associations stored up there, probably millions of items. Think of your brain's own internet with links connecting different pieces of information, while non-associative memory can excel at keeping track of time. It's not so great at storing the connections between events. So even though it could tell you exactly when something happens, it might struggle to remember how it's linked to other stuff. And that's where associative memory shines. It keeps everything connected, even if it's not precious with timing. And memory in children, when it comes to studying, however kids remember stuff, there are a bunch of things that to consider. In the first place, the sessions must be relatively short, which means that the amount that can be learned in the one session and correspondingly reduced. The total length of session for a 6-year-old should not exceed 20 or 30 minutes, and the shorter the session, the better. In a nutshell, studying memory in kids means keeping it short, making it fun, using familiar stuff, and sometimes leveling the playing field to see how they really remember things. It's all about understanding how their little brains works. And theories of forgetting. When it comes to forgetting stuff, it's not like the memory just disappears into thin air. It's more like you can access it when you need it. Think of it like trying to find a specific file on your computer. It's still there somewhere, you just can't seem located. Over time, it's natural for us to forget bits and pieces of information. Like, think about all the stuff you learned in the school that you don't really use anymore. It's not that you completely forget it, but it's just kind of fades into the background because it's not super useful or meaningful to you anymore. Remembering Psychology has identified three main strategies for promoting remembering. They are rehearsal, elaboration, and organization. These cognitive processes are necessary in remembering information. Elaboration involves adding details to information received by adding minute details. Bradshaw and Anderson, these authors gave subjects a sense to remember which read that the fat man read the sign, subjects who elaborated on the sentence by stating the fat man read the sign warning of the thin ice, recalled the information more effectively than the subjects who did not elaborate. An organization, individuals must organize information to facilitate learning. One way we organize info is through chunking. It's like bundling related bits of information together, kind of like sorting your clothes by color of type. For example, instead of remembering each letter of the alphabet separately, you group them into words, make it way easier to remember. Then there's coding, which is basically transforming into different forms, like how Morse code changes letters into dots and dashes. For transmission, it's like speaking different languages, sending information, different way of expressing it. And associations are another biggie. It's all about linking information together based on relationship or similarities. Kind of like how you remember your friend's birthday because it's close to yours. These associations help organize, recall, and memorize stuff better. And summary, as we age, it's common to notice some changes in memory. Sketchers reminds us that memory isn't always a straightforward process. It's a mix of remembering and forgetting. Our brains are like busy with little hubs with different parts handling different types of memories, but sometimes that we remember isn't exactly how things happened. When it comes to testing kids' memory, things can get tricky. Simple tasks like repeating that you say are easy for them to understand, but more complex memory games might take a bit more time for them to grasp. There are plenty of ways to boost memory, like practicing, repeating stuff, and organizing informations. It's like giving your brain a workout. It gets stronger with use and short-term memory. It is like a sticky note, handy for quick reminders, but it doesn't last forever. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening to me, and see you the